Okay, so I trust your quiz went well. What we're going to be looking at now is revisiting a unit that we did before we had our December break on factoring trinomials. And so obviously what you're going to be wondering maybe first and foremost is why it is that we're going back to this unit on factoring trinomials. I'm going to explain that in depth next lesson. Really what I want you to do now is focus on reviewing the skill of factoring, and the purpose of this video is just to give you a very quick reminder of what the key factors are or the key processes are when you factor, and then four quick examples, and then you're going to have some independent practice time. Okay, I will highlight one important thing though, and that is when we factor trinomials, a trinomial is in the form ax squared plus bx plus c, and hopefully you realize and recognize, particularly after a quiz, that actually if I took that expression and added in equals y, then you would realize that we're talking about a parabola. Okay, we're not going to worry too much about parabolas now though, because the focus is on a review of factoring, and then next lesson we'll connect a factored form to what the graph looks like and how it helps us. Okay, so quick reminder, factoring is the reverse process of distribution, and distribution of course is just multiplication, and so we might have something like 2 times x plus 3, and distribution would involve doing 2 times the x and 2 times the 3. Factoring reverses that process. We're not going to worry about all of the factoring processes, we're only going to worry about factoring of trinomials. Okay, so couple of key things. When you factor a trinomial, the answer, the solution, is the product of two binomials. So remember, we end up with two sets of parentheses, and each of them is a binomial, contains two terms. In order to figure out what goes inside those, we test the factors of the leading term. In other words, we are looking at the factors of the x squared, and we test the factors of the constant, which is the last number, to determine which combination yields the middle term. Okay, and then there are a few other details as well, namely about the signs that we need to look for. So let's get straight into this. In order to get x squared, this one's a relatively straightforward one, so I'm going to open my sets of parentheses straight away. In order to get x squared, the only option is to multiply x times x. In order to get 10, we can multiply 10 by 1, or we can multiply 5 by 2. Okay, next important piece of the process is to look at the sign over here. If it's positive 10, then we have two options. We've got a negative multiplied by a negative, or we have a positive multiplied by a positive. In this case, we look at the sign of the middle term, which is a positive, and that tells us straight away that we have two positives in our parentheses. And the last piece of the puzzle is to figure out which pair of factors is going to add or subtract to give us the middle term. Very clearly in this case, the 5 and 2 will be added to give us the 7, and so I can put those into either parenthesis because the parentheses are the same. Okay, this isn't a requirement, but I'll give you a quick reminder. If we wanted to check that our answer was correct, we could do a quick distribution. X by x is x squared, x by 2 is 2x, 5 by x gives us 5x, and plus 5 times plus 2 plus 10, leaving us with a simplified answer of x squared plus 7x plus 10, which was what we started with, and that confirms that our factored answer is in fact correct. Okay, so same question in the second one, one small area of difficulty. So once again, let's start off with our parentheses, because it's going to be a relatively straightforward example. In order to get the x squared, it has to be x and x. In order to get the 12, we've got a few options this time. 12 times 1, 6 times 2, 3 times 4. So we have three possible options. And again, what makes this a little bit trickier, of course, is that we have a minus sign, and that indicates that in order to get a minus, we've had to have 1 plus multiplied by a minus. Okay, so in this case again, because the parentheses are the same, it's x and x, doesn't matter where I put the plus and where I put the minus. That does tell us though that we're adding and subtracting in order to get our middle term, which is minus 4x. And so which pair of these factors, we know when they multiply they give us 12, all three pairs gives us 12 when we multiply. When we add or subtract, which combination of factors can get us minus 4? Hopefully you realize that it's the 6 and 2, and what we need to get minus 4 is negative 6 plus 2, which will give us minus 4x if I were to distribute that out. Okay, so if at this stage you are remembering how to do all of these and you feel confident that you can do this yourself, go ahead and pause the video at this stage and try questions C and D. They're intended to be significantly harder, and then come back to the second, come back and watch the answers. For those who are not yet feeling comfortable, you will have opportunities to practice, and so I am going to go ahead right now and do answers for C and D. Okay, procedure's the same, slightly more complicated though, because in order to get the 2x squared term, I now have 2x multiplied by x. In order to get the 6, it's going to be 6 multiplied by 1 or 3 multiplied by 2. And the complicating factor here, of course, is we have to figure out of these two pairs, we're going to get a different result if we do 2x times 3 or 2x times 2 or 2x times 6 or 2x times 1. So we have to figure out for our parentheses, if we're doing 2x and x, which we know for sure because those are the only factors of 2x squared, we're going to have to figure out whether we're going to have the 6 in this parenthesis with the 1 in this parenthesis, or we're going to have the 6 here and the 1 here, or we're going to have the 3 here and the 2 here, or the 3 here and the 2 here. So lots of different combinations, and on top of that we're going to have to figure out the signs. So fortunately for us in this case, signs are a little bit easier. We know that they're both the same and they are both negatives in this case. So at least that's one part of this which is a bit simpler. And now I'm just going to test these sets of factors to figure out which pair is going to give me minus 7x. So if I did 2x times 6, that would give me 12. 1 times x would give me 1. 12 and 1 both being subtracted, minus 12 minus 1 is not going to give us minus 7. If I do 2x times 1 and 6 times x, I'm going to get minus 8. 2x times 3 is going to give me 6x. 2 times x is going to give me 2x. Once again, I get to 8. And the pair of factors that I want is 2x multiplied by 2, which gives me 4x, and the 3 multiplied by x, which gives me my 3x, and that combines to give me what I want, which is minus 7x. And so the correct answer in this case, subtract 3 in this parenthesis and x minus 2 in this parenthesis. Okay, and the last one, slightly more difficult again for two different reasons. In this case, we've got to figure out which combination of factors of 4x squared, which could be 2x and 2x, or 4x and 1x, are in turn going to work with the factors of 6, which of course are 6 and 1, and of course I'll write that as 6 and 1, don't need to write that the other way because those are the same, or, sorry, let me just rewrite that slightly, excuse me, differently. We have 2x and 2x, 4x and 1x are our possibilities for the 4x squared term, and then of course 6 and 1 and 3 and 2 are the possibilities for the factors of 6. Okay, and we're going to have to figure out which combination of these can get us to plus 23x, and then we've also got the added complication of the signs being different. So quite a complicated trinomial in this case. Okay, I'm going to test a couple of different factors here. Hopefully one of the things you see in this case is that the middle term is quite large, and that should be a good clue for us, because that should tell us that what we want to do is have this 4x multiplied by the factor 6, because that's going to get us 24x. The other combinations are all going to be a bit too small. The 1x times the 6, 4 times 1 is not going to get us there. 4 by 2, 1 times 3, 2 by 6, 2 by 2, 2 by 6, 2 by 1, 2 by 3, 2 by 2 is not going to get us there. And so hopefully that middle term is a good clue for us. It tells us it's got to be the 4x, 1x, and it also tells us that we need that 4x to be multiplied by the 6 to get us a number big enough, and that's going to get us 24. And then of course we need the 1 in here to get 24, and the 1, which is going to give us 23. In this case we need positive 23, so that's going to be a plus 6 and a minus 1, and that gets us our correct product of binomials in order to satisfy the factoring. Okay, so at this point you need to copy down the answers to this and then turn your attention to the Khan Academy question set, and you'll find, as usual, the link to that posted in the links document in the quadratics folder on your Google Drive. And do remember to go, when you go into Khan Academy, to log in and do so using your school account so that I'm able to verify and see the work that you've done.